Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I've decided to start this channel because I love makeup, I also love true crime, so I figured I'd talk about a story or a crime or a mystery, depending on what comes in the future, whilst I'm getting ready for my day. Disclaimer, all the stuff I've found is on the internet already. It's not hidden information, it's not secretive, but again, if this kind of a video offends you, please don't watch, or viewer discretion is advised. We are talking about murder and a crime, but we are also talking about an educational thing which could potentially give peace to lots and lots of victims and victims' families as well. So stay tuned and we're going to get straight into the video. We are going to be talking about the murder of Helen McCourt. Helen was a 22-year-old girl, a woman, I guess, from a small village near St. Helens. The village is called Billinge, I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's in Warrington, but Helen worked in Liverpool. So every day she would get the train and then a bus to Liverpool to go to her job, where she was an insurance clerk. So on the 9th of February 1988, so we're talking nearly 40 years ago now, Helen didn't come home. She talked to her mum at about 4 p.m. when she was leaving work to ask her mum if tea could be ready early because she wanted to go to the pub with her new boyfriend. And her mum said, yeah, that's fine. She wanted to have time to wash her hair and stuff. So I think she rang her mum a few times just to confirm that her tea was going to be made a bit early so she could wash her hair and go out and have a lot of fun. Because it was a Friday, I believe. Which makes sense because everyone wants to go out for a drink on a Friday. However, on this day, on the 9th of February, trains were cancelled. A lot of trains were cancelled. Traffic was really bad for whatever reason. And Helen basically was going to have a bit of trouble getting home. But her brother also worked in Lime Street. I believe her brother's called Michael. And he managed to get home just fine because his train wasn't cancelled. So when this was said, this is when Helen's mum started to panic. Helen's mum is called Marie, and she's going to be very important in the future. Stay tuned. So after a few hours of no contact, she tries ringing up hospitals, any local friends, her work friends, stuff like that, to try and see if anyone or anyone that knows Helen has seen her or knows where she is. But after a few hours, she gets in contact with the police. The police think Helen's mum, Marie, is being a bit overprotective because Helen is 22 years old. It's not like she's a young child. But Marie assures them, no, there's nothing, like something's wrong. Helen always calls me when something, like if plans change, so she wouldn't have just gone out for a drink with like her workmates or something like that, because she'd already rang her mum to say she was coming home and she wanted tea to be ready early. So, sensing this kind of panic, the police officers send out a search. They get a search going around Liverpool to find Helen, and unfortunately don't find her. So, what I didn't mention was the bus that Helen gets after the train station to get to her village. It's only like 500 yards away from her house that she has to walk, so it's not far at all. It's about a 10-20 minute walk. So yeah, it doesn't take long. So they start trying to see whether anyone saw her that night, and a man on the bus comes forward and says he did hear a scream that was cut off, and a local restaurant owner also said the same thing. However, these didn't come through until after the investigation had started. So the day after Helen went missing, 2,000 people from the village showed up to do a search party to try and find her, because at this point they just thought she was missing. They didn't know what had happened to her. So the family start out this search party. The police are involved. Everyone's trying to find Helen. So in this party, the police begin knocking door to door on any house or business that is nearby, from the bus stop to her house, in case anyone had seen her or heard something from her or anything like that. So a lot of people in the town are wondering what's going on. They don't know what's happened. It's a really small village, so it's not like it's, an everyday occurrence or it's common for these things to happen. It's really, really rare. So the police have gone door to door looking for her, and they end up at the pub, which was called the George and the Dragon at the time, which I've actually been to. It's now called something different, and I've been to it not recently, a few years ago, when it had changed hands. Because you'll find out in the story. So in the pub, they interview a guy called Ian, the landlord of the pub, the George and the Dragon. And the pub is everyone's local go-to pub. Everyone knows each other in this town. But Ian was known as a bit of a bully. He was quite arrogant, a bit cocky, didn't really get on with everyone. He was married with 2 kids, but seemed to flirt with every woman that went into the the pub. And this includes Helen, who rejected him multiple times. And one night, she ended up getting in a bit of a confrontation with a girl. So the girl had spilt a drink on her, and Helen wasn't best impressed, but she left it. She went to the toilet to go and clean up, and the girl followed her in, and they started a bit of a fight. And because Ian could hear it, he went in and stopped the fight and barred them both. Helen was no longer allowed into the pub, and this was only 2 days before she went missing. Helen also knew that Ian was having an affair. He was married with 2 kids, as I said, but he lived above the pub for security purposes, while his wife and 2 kids lived down the road in their own house. So I think a lot of people knew that he was cheating aside from his wife. I'm not too sure on the details of that, but long story short, the police end up interviewing him, and they think he's a bit suspicious because when they say, "Oh, are we okay to search the place? Are you okay to get someone to cover for the pub?" He gets a bit angsty and a bit scared. One of the police officers was actually a psychologist, had a psychologist degree or something like that, so he recognised the signs as being something a bit suspicious. So in the interview, Ian admits that he's cheating on his wife, and the police point out that he has scratches on his neck, which he said in this interview that it was from his wife after he told her he was cheating. However, his mistress, the girl that he was cheating on her with, confirms that it wasn't, and his wife also confirms that it wasn't. So in the next day, he changes his story to he got them when he was breaking up the fight, which obviously involved Helen and the other woman. The other woman comes forward and says, "No, none of us touched him. We both kind of got our stuff and left, and that was that." So from that point forward, Ian's obviously looking super kind of fishy in the police's eyes, so they get a warrant to search his place. This all takes part 3 days after the murder has occurred. Well, Helen's gone missing. We don't know whether she's murdered at this point. So when the police get a warrant to search his house, they do find blood splatters on the wall. And they also find traces of blood in the back bedroom, on the door handles, and in his car. While this is going on, a guy a couple towns over is walking his dog in Hollands Green. Hollands Green is down the road from where I live. Literally down the road. I can walk there in about 20 minutes. Well, used to live. I don't live there anymore. And so what had happened is this guy was walking his dog, and his dog pulled out a bloody pillowcase. And then the guy also noticed there was lots of male clothes, and they were kind of folded as if they'd just been pulled off, rushed in a hurry. And they were also stained with blood. So at this point in time, DNA evidence was very new, like forensic evidence, and there wasn't a lot of techniques available. But in this case, they decided to kind of test them out, and they found that if they took the parents' blood sample, like family members' blood samples, they could be able to compare the similarities to see whether it was Helen's blood, because they couldn't find Helen to get a blood sample. So they do this, and they find that the blood in the apartment, the blood on the clothes, and the blood on the pillowcase matches Helen's family members, which they then assume it is Helen that has been murdered. While they're searching his car, they also do find the back of an earring and a hair, which they matched in the future to a hair that was on Helen's rollers to further prove that it was Helen. So at this point, everyone knows Ian's kind of done it, but he is maintaining a defense of he's innocent, he's not done anything, there's nothing involved, like he had nothing to do with it. But the day after the dog walker had found it, another dog walker in another town over called Erlin, it's the River Irwell, which is my hometown. They find a handbag. In the handbag is, I believe, the back of Helen's earring and the one that they found in his car, which his mum identified as being Helen's as well, by the way. And they also find her ID, her passport or a driving license or something like that. So obviously they know it's Helen's. The police then cordon off the area to do a thorough search, and they find another bag of clothes, which were all bloody, and they matched the description of what Helen was wearing the night she went missing, and her mum identified them as being the clothes that Helen was wearing when she disappeared. So at this point, it's turned from a missing person investigation to a murder investigation. In this bin bag of Helen's clothes, they also find electrical fleck, which is what they use to keep the wires contained so they're not exposed. The fleck that they found matches the fleck in Ian's apartment. So it's thought that he strangled her and then took her body somewhere in his car, and we still don't actually know where she is. Because this was in 1988, and this was actually one of the first trials since World War II for a criminal to be convicted without pleading guilty. It was just based on the DNA evidence. So he was arrested and put in jail, but he still pleaded that he was innocent. His defense was that someone must have broke into his flat, stole his clothes. By the way, a jumper found by the dog walker in Hollands Green, the original one, matched the lager that they sold in the pub, and that's kind of how they matched it to being Ian, because it was the same forensic detective that had received the evidence. So the same guy that got the earring was the same guy that got the bag of clothes. Even though they were separate instances, it ended up on the same guy's desk, and he correlated the two cases together. So it was a certain brand of lager, I can't remember for the life of me what it was called, that was on one of the jumpers that was found, and it was the lager that was sold in the pub. So it was like a promotional piece of clothing that Ian had to wear. He did say that were his clothes. He admitted to them being his clothes, but he remains the defense that he didn't actually do anything, he's innocent. Someone broke into his house, stole his clothes, stole his car, killed Helen, and put Helen in his car, left all the blood traces, and all that jazz. So, yeah, that's a long explanation. The important part about this case is that Helen's body still hasn't been found. Ian Sims is now walking the streets on parole, going for days out, being treated like a normal, civilized human being, all while Helen's body still isn't found. This is obviously devastating to Marie, who's Helen's mum, Michael, who's Helen's brother. Anyone that knew Helen hasn't got any closure whatsoever. They don't even know where she is. They can't bury her. They can't say goodbye. You know, every morning Marie wakes up and goes, well, what can I do today to help find my daughter? She's bought shovels, she's gone digging, she's gone everywhere she could possibly look for her own daughter, which is quite frankly terrifying, knowing that she could possibly never find her daughter. So what Marie has done, Marie has created a law based off Helen. It's called Helen's Law, retrospectively. What this means is that a criminal, a murderer, cannot be on parole, cannot be, what's the word? Anyway, they're not eligible, that's the word, for parole, if they don't show where the body is, or they don't tell where the body is. This is obviously a really important law for members of the family of people who've been killed, or they don't know where the body is, or they can't find their children and stuff like that. So it's super important that this law gets passed. It was due to be passed last year. Now we're in 2020. But due to the general election, it wasn't. Helen has obviously had a big place in a lot of people's hearts, and a lot of people would want to know where she is. So if you've watched this video, if you've got this far, make sure you click the link in the description and sign the petition. And then while you're there, you can click the subscribe button and maybe like and leave a comment on maybe your hometown murder, or what it is that brings you fascinating to you about true crime, or any other facts about this case that I might have missed. Or just leave a comment and tell me how your day went. But yeah, thank you for watching, really appreciate it, and make sure you sign that petition so we can get Helen's Law passed, so no criminal can get away with not telling a family where they've hid the body. Thank you. Bye.